Last night, something happened that I couldn't stop thinking about, y'all. My son was watching a TikTok live, and there was a guy on there arguing that the earth is flat, of course. Now, before anybody jumps to conclusions, this is not going to be an episode about proving that earth is round. So hold your horses, you'll be all right. That's not what stayed with me, though. What stayed with me was the conversation my son and I had while we watched it. The guy on the live kept making one unsupported claim after another. Every statement was delivered with complete confidence, as if confidence itself transferred a claim into a fact. My son and I started talking about what we were hearing, of course. We were really just having our own conversation while the live continued, in person. And I could see my son starting to get frustrated. Not because he wanted to argue with the dude or debate the guy, or not because, he was trying to embarrass the guy or nothing. He was more frustrated because he was watching someone present unsupported claims as established truth, and thousands of people were sitting there listening as if simply saying something with coincidence somehow made it credible. And as I sat there watching my son react, I realized we weren't really watching a conversation about flat earth. We were talking about something that was a little bigger. We were watching the glorification of stupidity. And let me explain what I mean, because I'm not using that word to insult people. Every single one of us is ignorant about something. There are things I don't know. There are things you don't know. Ignorance isn't a character flaw. It's human condition. No one enters the world knowing physics and biology and philosophy or even history. We have to learn that, or at least we're supposed to. The problem isn't ignorance. The problem begins when ignorance stops being something we overcame and starts being something that we defend. When people no longer feel any responsibility to support what they claim, when asking someone for evidence is treated like an attack instead of a reasonable request, that's what disturbed me. Not because this one man believes the earth is flat. People believe all kind of things. What disturbed me was how normal it has become to make extraordinary claims without extraordinary evidence. Think about the world we live in, bro. Like, a person can grab a phone, go live, make 10 unbelievable claims in 5 minutes, offer absolute no demonstration, no testing, no evidence, and by the end of the stream, they have thousands of people applauding them simply because they sounded certain. So when did certainty become proof? Who taught us that confidence equals credibility? Those things are absolutely different. They have nothing to do with each other. A person can be sincere and still be wrong. I say this all the time. A person can be passionate and still be wrong. A person can have millions of followers and still be wrong. See, truth has never been determined by confidence. It's never really been determined by popularity. Truth has never been determined by emotion. If you ask me, truth has always been determined by what can actually be demonstrated. And somewhere along the way, we forgot that. Social media didn't create this problem, though. It exposed it. These platforms don't reward what's true. They reward what keeps your attention. The algorithm don't wake up every morning asking, how can we promote the most accurate information today? It asks something like, what will keep people watching? Those are two completely different questions. Outrage keeps people watching. Rage bait keeps people watching. Confidence keeps people watching. And extraordinary claims keep people watching, Evidence. Evidence is usually boring. Evidence requires patience. It requires testing. Evidence requires people to slow down and to think, and that's not how the internet works anymore, though. I mean, we have built a entire culture around instant certainty. Everyone's an expert, everyone's exposing the truth. Everybody has secret knowledge that the rest of the world somehow missed. And if you ask one simple question, how do you know that's true? Suddenly you're the problem. You're the one called closed-minded, you're called a sheep. You're told that you need to wake up, or I even heard them say, well, you need to do your own research. But here's what I find interesting about when they say that. The people telling you to do your own research rarely shows you theirs. They'll tell you to reject the experts, like reject the scientists, reject the historians, reject the universities, reject peer review, reject anyone who disagrees with them. But then somehow you're supposed to accept them. Based on what, though? Like their confidence? Their personality? That's replacing one authority with another. And before somebody or anybody think I'm talking about flat earth, I ain't, okay? This happens in religion. I mean, it happens in politics. It even happened amongst atheists. Nobody gets a free pass. I mean, this isn't a political problem. This is not a religious problem. This is a human problem, y'all. Human beings have an incredible ability to become emotionally attached to ideas they've never actually examined. Once that happens, the evidence almost doesn't matter anymore, really. Now the goal isn't recovering what's true. The goal is protecting what you already believe. And once protecting your belief becomes more important than testing it, learning stops. I mean, growth stops. Curiosity stops. That's the moment stupidity becomes dangerous. Stupidity isn't simply believing something false, y'all. Every one of us have believed something false. I believe false things. What makes stupidity dangerous, in my opinion, is refusing to let evidence interrupt your certainty. One of the hardest things I've ever done was change my own mind. Many of you know my story if you watch this channel. I spent decades believing things I no longer believe. Walking away from it wasn't easy. It would have been much easier to stay where I was. It would have been much easier to ignore the uncomfortable questions. It would have been more easier to protect my identity instead of following the evidence wherever it led me to. But I had to ask myself one question. If I'm wrong, do I actually want to know? That's a terrifying question. And if your answer is no, on the other end of this camera, then you ain't searching for the truth. You're searching for comfort. And comfort has never been a reliable path to reality, at least from my perspective. The smartest people I've ever met all have one thing in common. They're comfortable with saying, I don't know. Think about that. The 3 hardest words for an insecure person to say are, I don't know. But those might be the most intelligent 3 words a person can speak. I mean, the moment you admit you don't know, you made room to learn. The person who says, I already know, has nowhere left to grow. And I think that's where we are as a culture. We stopped admiring humility. We stopped rewarding curiosity. We stopped respecting people who change their minds because of better evidence. Instead, though, we reward certainty. We reward volume. We reward confidence and performance. And then we wonder why misinformation spreads so easily. It spreads because we've confused entertainment with education. We've confused influence with expertise. We've confused followers with credibility. And we've even confused confidence with competence. Those are not the same things. They just ain't. You know, when my son and I finished watching the live, you know, he eventually cut it off or whatnot. I wasn't thinking about the shape of the earth anymore, y'all. I was thinking about the shape of our culture as human beings, a culture where unsupported claims are applauded, where evidence has become optional, where asking questions is treated like an insult, where saying prove it somehow makes you the bad guy. That's backwards to me, y'all. If your claim is true, questions should strengthen it. Evidence should support it. Testing should confirm it. Truth has nothing to fear from investigation. Only unsupported claims do. So, no. What disturbed me last night wasn't one man talking about the flat earth. What disturbed me was watching confidence replace competence. You know, watching unsupported claims receive respect they never earned. Watching certainty celebrated while evidence sat quietly in the corner, ignored. Guys, that is the glorification of stupidity. And if we continue rewarding people for making claims they cannot demonstrate, we shouldn't be surprised when truth becomes harder and harder to find. Civilizations don't decline the moment people become ignorant. They decline the moment ignorance becomes something worth applauding. And that's what a future, well, yeah, that's a future none of us should be willing to accept. I mean, I'm gonna just stop there, you know. No fear, no dogma, just clarity. I'm CJ Everson. The Jewish Skeptic. Thanks for watching.
Do you know what I found? The more you know, the less you know.